In modern-day film media, a movie is a reflection of a director's specific artistic vision, as each filmmaker will have recognisable and recurring themes. A prime example of where you can find auteur theory is in the many films of Alfred Hitchcock. Before auteur theory was really introduced to mainstream media, Hitchcock was seen as a vulgar showman who only made commercial thrillers. Now, in modern Hollywood, many directors are praised for having such a strong visual style. This is why Hitchcock's filmmaking is now incredibly praised for many reasons, one of them being that he has a strong psychological connection with his films, which helps the audience to also psychologically connect with it too. This allows him to manipulate their emotions and responses to the scenes. Auteur theory is very popular in helping directors create their own independent image in their works. Like American director Howard Hawks said, "I like almost anybody that made you realise who the devil was making the picture." Auteur theory originated in the French film criticism of the late 1940s, but wasn't truly accepted until the 1960s and 70s revitalised the whole filmmaking industry with a new generation of directors. During this time, American film critic Andrew Sarris is credited for the phrase auteur theory and for being the one who popularised it in English-speaking media. Although many still don't truly believe in auteur theory, they will still listen to the words of Sarris as he was interested in what makes cinema an art. With this new wave of directors, studios showed an increased willingness to allow their directors to take bigger risks. However, this free experimentation came to an end in the 1980s when high-profile financial failures prompted many studios to reclaim control over what was being made, like Michael Cimino's Heaven's Gate, which had a budget of $44 million but only made $3.5 million. Filmmaking has since been made a director's business again, with auteur theory playing a big part without many audiences even realising it's happening. Directors now have almost full control of the fundamental visual elements and use things like camera placement, lighting, staging and editing to add to their creative vision. Auteur theory is not all round popular though. This is because many believe that there are more people involved in the final looking outcome than just the director. David Kippen coined the term Schreiber theory, which is the theory that the screenwriter is the principal auteur of a film, as they are the literal authors of the piece before the director will add their vision. Along with Kippen, Richard Corliss had also argued that writing is more important, as a good story can carry a film without the best directors in the industry. True supporters of auteur theory believe that only the most cinematically successful films will hold the unmistakable and personal style of the director. Some directors will stick to their independent style so much that it can ruin a scene in a film, as that scene wasn't written to be captured in that way. This is why some argue that screenwriters are just as, if not more, important, as they have complete control before any filming commences. French director Francois Truffaut has defended the likes of Hitchcock and Hawks, as he chooses to see their works as a whole piece with the recurring themes and minor obsessions instead of just an individual scene or film that didn't quite meet their usual standard. It was James Agee, a novelist and screenwriter, that said, "The best films are personal ones made by forceful directors." Agee clearly sees directors as the auteur of a film, even though he himself is a screenwriter for many. Maria Giese noted that some of its criticisms come from the fact that most praised auteurs are a very male-dominated group of people. However, this is more due to the fact that there is, and always has been, a severe lack of female directors in mainstream Hollywood. In 2016, only 7% of the directors for the top 250 grossing films were women.
These four men and Greta Gerwig created their own masterpieces this year.
Wes Anderson is a modern auteur for his consistent visual and narrative style depicted in all of his films. His unique style has gained him attention, as well as his artistic style in mainstream cinema. Wes Anderson very rarely uses shadow in Life Aquatic. Most shots in the film are lit in a very flat manner and are also lit naturally, which contrasts with the very artificial use of setting, costume, makeup and cinematography. When it comes to the staging of the film, Anderson very deliberately places talent within a scene to again create a very staged feeling. Probably the best example of staging mise-en-scène is the submarine scene, in which each of the cast members are placed perfectly in the shot so that they are almost all visible in the frame, despite how packed they are within the scene. The Grand Budapest Hotel is one of his most stylistic films yet, through the stunning symmetrical shots and use of colour. We can see in this meeting scene with Zero and Agatha that Anderson specifically chooses the hues of pink and blue. One can theorise that the use of these colours was to signify young and budding love between Zero and Agatha. If it isn't the colour or the odd narrative Anderson typically employs, it is his consistent symmetrical framing in his films. The geometric framing and crafted composition employed adds a sense of order and even respect for the one-point perspective style. By centering his objects, Anderson brings emphasis to what is in the frame and pleases the audience's eyes through the visual aesthetic. Symmetry is known to be artistically beautiful and breathtaking. When a Wes Anderson film comes out, an ensemble of actors comes with it, typically Bill Murray, Owen Wilson, Luke Wilson, Angelica Huston and Adrian Brody. If the visual style didn't tip off an audience member, it would most likely be the presence of Bill Murray or Owen Wilson.
Straight out of Sanford!
Edgar Wright is another director who is renowned for his use of mise-en-scène in his films. In Shaun of the Dead, Shaun is wearing a red tie which is often used to represent blood and danger. This is very appropriate considering it is a zombie film. His shirt is very white, which greatly contrasts the red and gives off a clinical fake atmosphere, suggesting that Shaun's life is possibly fake. Also, there is a bit of red ink on his shirt which could be mistaken for blood, adding a comical effect and foreshadowing the future. To help create the scene, there are many everyday objects such as traffic cones, cars and streetlights. However, there is clearly something off as they are knocked over and broken, but Shaun doesn't notice this due to tiredness, which again adds to the comedy. The overall lighting is very mundane and dull, but it still looks natural. When Shaun is in the house, especially during the lounge scenes, the lighting is boring and has a grey-blue tint to it. Grey and blue are generally used to represent sadness and boredom. Edgar Wright has a very specific, well-known type of editing that consists of very quick shots with interesting angles of very mundane things such as travelling, getting changed, or pouring beers. This makes parts of the film that are usually very boring for the audience more appealing and comical. Edgar uses both diegetic and non-diegetic music in his films. He often uses modern and up-to-date songs. He also uses action music in films such as Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and The World's End, otherwise known as the Cornetto Trilogy, which are some of Edgar Wright's most popular movies. Films such as Baby Driver use many diegetic tracks as the main character is constantly listening to music. However, in Shaun of the Dead, a lot of non-diegetic music is used for the on-beat action scenes. Overall, Edgar Wright skillfully uses the macro elements of film form to make all of his films as brilliant as the last. This is part of what makes him such a beloved filmmaker.